First, you're going to hear the raw, unprocessed audio of this voice recording, and then I'm going to engage the processing, and I want you to listen to the difference in tone and dynamics and consistency. Listen for the balance.
Carson studied the scene through binoculars as Forrest jammed on his brakes. Is that guy seriously carrying a MAC-10?
In this video, I want to talk about breaths, clicks, and pops in voiceover when you're recording dialogue. I want to address how, when, and if to deal with them with processing. That's one. I want to talk about techniques that we can use to avoid them completely, like try not to even have them get to the microphone, breaths, clicks, and pops in the recordings. How do we avoid them before we even record them? And then I also want to talk about my perspective and really putting it all in perspective about how important they are to keep in or to take out, how much energy and time are you going to spend editing them out or whatever. I really want to put that in perspective because it depends on a lot of factors. My name is Lenny B. I'm an audio engineer, and this submission was sent to me a couple days ago, and it is being recorded on a Roswell Mini K87, and he is capturing the audio with an RME Babyface Pro audio interface and preamp. I've disengaged all of the plugins that I've used to process, and I want to examine the raw audio with you. I want you to listen carefully. We're going to play it from the very beginning of the clip. In just a couple seconds here, I want you to listen carefully to the raw audio capture that was sent to me.
They pulled out of Rexburg as the eastern sky was beginning to lighten, hoping to put distance between themselves and the town before the morning rush of people trying to leave. The truck ran rough, but steady, and they made good time on the empty highways.
I want to use this particular submission to really illustrate a couple things when it comes to breaths, clicks, and pops. I don't know if you heard them, but they were quite apparent in the raw audio capture. And a lot of people always have questions, and they're coming from different approaches, and they handle them differently. But I get these questions a lot, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to really discuss my feeling towards breaths, clicks, and pops when it comes to optimizing audio and really putting your best foot forward when you're creating content to make a connection with your audience. Before we go any further, I want to now play the before and after processing, because I want you, now that I've directed your attention to the breaths, clicks, and pops in this particular submission, I want you to hear the difference between how they show up in the raw audio capture and how they show up after I engage the processing that I've created for this track. I'll start again with the raw audio and then engage the processing.
They pulled out of Rexburg as the eastern sky was beginning to lighten, hoping to put distance between themselves and the town before the morning rush of people trying to leave. The truck ran rough, but steady, and they made good time on the empty highways. They pulled out of Rexburg as the eastern sky was beginning to lighten, hoping to put distance between themselves and the town before the morning rush of people trying to leave. The truck ran rough, but steady, and they made good time on the empty highways.
Here are my thoughts. I have minimized some of the breaths, clicks, and pops. If you might have noticed, I am not using like a declicker, mouth declick from Isotope is one of the ones I usually pull to it. I think it does a really good job at removing some of the clicks and pops, but there's a lot of things going on here. So the first thing I want to talk about is how, when, and if I address them. First of all, I think there's a threshold. This is my approach on how to handle them to begin with. Okay. First of all, they have to be like really drawing my attention away from the story. I think we have to put it in perspective, right? We have to think about where it falls, and that should really depend on what type of message it actually is. Is it a commercial? Is it a commercial? Is it a narration? Is it an announcement? Is it a movie trailer? Is it a story, an audiobook? How heavy is the story? How important is the story? And how detailed is the presentation, right? Is there music behind it? Is it just voice by itself? So are the breaths, pops, and clicks taking my attention away from the message? Because the message is the subject. If the message doesn't work, nothing else matters, right? How are you connecting with the audience? So that's the first thing. I don't feel in this particular example, I don't feel like it's pulling me away too much, but that I'll leave that up to the voiceover artists themselves and how much they want to deal with it. I just want you to put it in perspective, really. That's how important it is. Okay, if it is drawing my attention away from the story, here's what I would do to address it. I would use a declick plugin like Mouth Declick, and I'll do that here just so you can hear the difference. But, every time you use a restoration type plugin, and that's what I would call a Mouth Declick by Isotope, I would call that a restoration plugin. It's a Band-Aid. You are fixing something post-production. After the fact, after you've recorded it, you're using some type of processing restoration plug-in technique to address the issue that has already happened. And I want you to understand every time you add any type of a restoration plug-in, it's a give and take, right? We are removing the clicks, but we are reducing the quality just a little bit every time you add something like that. And I don't care if it uses the latest AI or whatever it is, nothing is going to sound better than the natural raw capture of this recording. He's got a great mic. He has a fantastic preamp and audio interface, one of the top. The top level RME is fantastic, and the preamps are totally transparent and amazing. So anything that we're doing is creating something a little more unnatural. But that doesn't mean you can't use it. So here is what it would sound like. I'll do before and after, with and without the Mouth Declick, okay? So here's the processed without the Mouth Declick, and then we'll play it again with, and listen to the difference.
They pulled out of Rexburg as the eastern sky was beginning to lighten, hoping to put distance between themselves and the town before the morning rush of people trying to leave. The truck ran rough, but steady, and they made good time on the empty highways. They pulled out of Rexburg as the eastern sky was beginning to lighten, hoping to put distance between themselves and the town before the morning rush of people trying to leave. The truck ran rough, but steady, and they made good time on the empty highways.
One of the things that's really cool about the RX Mouth Declick is it'll show you how many clicks it's repaired in real time, 256. Now, that number is arbitrary, and that's based on the default settings, and I widened the click control just a little bit, is what I like to do. But it repaired quite a few of the clicks, but there was a give and take. I think it's a little darker. I think if you compare them over and over again and you listened really carefully, it does reduce the fidelity a little bit, in my opinion. And, is that worth it? I don't know. That's up to you as the voiceover artist. Following along with that same idea, one of the other things that I can do, or that I usually or might do with processing, is lean on my expander gate a little bit. And what that does is between words, when the plugin, and I'll show you the one that I use, when the plugin does not detect a voice, it drops the audio down. And then when the voice starts again, it opens it up. So during those quiet parts between words, it actually lowers the volume. But one of the things you can do that's pretty cool is you can tell it to only look at you could tell the detector circuit to only look at certain frequencies. And I will show you what I do. I use the Schoeps Omnichannel for this, and it's this module here. It's the first module. It's the gate expander module, and I use a sidechain. So this is kind of deep, but I do want to explain how I would address it. So I'm going to play the audio with this expander gate engaged, and I'll show you. You can solo the sidechain, and we're going to listen to just what I'm allowing the expander to hear and work from.
They pulled out of Rexburg as the eastern sky was beginning to lighten, hoping to put distance between themselves.
So what I'm doing is I'm lowering the sidechain frequencies on this low-pass filter, so I only want the detector to work on lower material. So that means I want the expander to ignore the breaths to open the expander. So if it hears clicks, pops, breaths, it's not going to open. But as soon as it hears some of the chesty lower frequencies in the voice, then it will open. So I'm focusing the detector circuit. I'm making it more specific to not open when it hears the breaths and clicks and pops, high frequency stuff, but just look at the low material. So when those vowels or consonants come through that are using the lower frequencies, then you can open up the expander. It's just a way to kind of fine tune the expander gate to be more natural sounding, because I don't want you to hear me trying to remove or minimize those breaths. And that's how I use the gate expander. So let me show you the difference of what that looks like and sounds like. I'm going to remove the Mouth Declick, but what I'm going to do is shut off the expander gate first. And so listen to how apparent the breaths, clicks, and pops are between words before and after I engage this expander gate. We'll start with it off.
They pulled out of Rexburg as the eastern sky was beginning to lighten, hoping to put distance between themselves and the town before the morning rush of people trying to leave. The truck ran rough, but steady, and they made good time on the empty highways. They pulled out of Rexburg as the eastern sky was beginning to lighten, hoping to put distance between themselves and the town before the morning rush of people trying to leave. The truck ran rough, but steady, and they made good time on the empty highways.
That's pretty cool. I know I'm a geek when it comes to this stuff. I just think that it's pretty cool. I have the tools to manipulate the audio. Now, is it perfect? No. It hasn't completely removed the mouth clicks and breaths and pops. It's minimized them, and I think it helps do it in a way. Remember what we said before. It's like, at what level do you start addressing it? And if it takes your attention away, this actually helps direct less attention to the mouth clicks, pops, and breaths, right? And, all of this also is, we have to put this in the equation of like somebody who has to read an audiobook. You've got hours of work that you have to do, and then how are you simplifying it? How are you making it easier for you to deliver the product that sounds as best as possible without just like adding a ton of time? Because every extra hour, every extra task that you add on to your work, if you're doing voiceover, it doesn't even have to be a voiceover that you're selling or offering as a product. Even if you're making your own content, right? Every few minutes that you're adding on by doing some type of more editing, it's costing you more, right? It's costing you more time to get the content out, get it to be distributed and get it to your audience. So we have to keep that all in mind. So I think the combination, these are two good tools that I might use to address with the processing. So let's talk about the next thing, techniques to avoid them. How do you physically avoid breaths, clicks, and pops from getting captured by your microphone in the first place? I always feel like that's the best move, right? You want to make sure you don't even create the problem or try to avoid the problem completely so you don't have to deal with it with processing afterwards. So here's a couple things. I think a lot of people, and if you search online, there's a bunch of stuff available and a ton of content is available about how to deal with clicks and mouth clicks and pops and things. Here is my suggestion. Yes, you can hydrate. I've heard that. I've heard there's tea and hot water and lemon and hot tea and this and that. There's all sorts of things you might do. It's kind of a personal thing, how your mouth reacts to certain tastes and how much saliva is being generated or dryness, whatever. There's also a technique that I want to share with you that you can consider if some people have a mouth structure that produces louder breaths. They have a mouth structure that induces more clicks than others. So it really kind of depends. I mean, my chair is clicking right now. I don't know if you're hearing that just by moving or whatever. Noises happen. So how do you do it? I'm constantly listening, and I'm constantly. I guess there's a constant measurement going on in my brain when I'm recording, when I'm putting content together. If I hear something, there's like a subconscious alarm that goes off. Oh, do that line again, and then I'll do it again, and it's something that I'm going to have to handle. So that's one approach. There's also a technique that I want to share with you to avoid breaths or mouth clicks, and it's simply removing your mouth from the sensitive section of your microphone. And I'll give you an example. If, let's say, I had really wheezy breath or something like that, right? You can simply just get out of the microphone's pickup pattern, right? This particular microphone that I'm using is a cardioid pickup pattern. If I were to turn my head and get out of that sensitive area, I'm going to reduce the amount of breaths that are being picked up. Now, obviously, if you're moving your head back and forth, you're going to add silence that may have to be edited out. So really, again, it all depends on what type of script you're reading, what type of content you're creating. If you're on camera, that's probably not going to work. So you got to weigh all this, okay? I just want to give you another tool that you can consider or a technique that you can consider by just completely removing your physical mouth away from the microphone. That's one. Also, I watch myself sometimes on the microphone, and I over enunciate. I make sure that, and you can see it if you watch some of my videos, and I realize I'm doing this subconsciously. I don't necessarily like the way my mouth looks sometimes. I'm overcompensating maybe, that I'm trying to make sure that the consonants and the words are clear and the diction is very clear. This is something that, man, my mom used to nail that into my brain when I was a kid. Don't mumble, and make sure you are speaking clearly so everybody can hear you, no matter how far away they are. This is in a live situation or whatever. So over enunciating, slowing down, making sure you complete every consonant and sentence, that can also help. And maybe just pull back on the intensity of the breaths a little bit. You can take your time when you're inhaling, or you can open your mouth when you breathe to prevent any whistling or SH type of sounds or air from making a sound. You just be cognizant of all that stuff. And the last thing I want to share with you is about perspective. When you're dealing with breaths, clicks, and pops in a voice recording, in voiceover or a narration or an announcement or some type of a post that you're creating on camera or off camera, if you're recording your voice onto a microphone and you're dealing with breaths, clicks, and pops, I want to put it in perspective. This is my perspective, and I will remind you, if you are familiar with my videos and my channel, you'll know that I come from a broadcasting background. I've been on the radio for decades, or was on the radio for decades, and for morning shows and personality-driven morning shows, and I've produced morning shows and created content for years and years. And so breaths, clicks, pops, burps, snorts, laughs, are all part of human communication. So I'm a little biased to actually keeping them in. It's part of your communication. So, this means that even in my content that I create, even in the videos that I create, I don't go through and take out all that stuff most of the time, unless it's just bugging me. It's a personal threshold, right? But understand, I also have a musician background, and breaths are part of the cadence or tempo of a presentation of a vocal. So it's part of communication, which means that personally, in my opinion, I don't worry too much about it because it's just part of who I am. And then here's the other perspective I want to share with you. We're all trying to put our best foot forward, and we make kind of communication. But you also have to be yourself. If you've got a little bit of a lisp, and I've done videos about this before, or a particular accent, or you've got some type of a different voice, maybe your voice is really high or it's really low, that's part of you. You are perfect. Your voice is perfect. If a client, if a fan, if a subscriber, if a friend, if a family member doesn't like your voice and they don't stick around, that's okay. There's plenty of other people that are interested in what you have to say. Be yourself. Be comfortable in your own skin. Now, I understand that this is all personal, and there are some things that are completely annoying. But again, put it in perspective. If you have a client, let me give you a voiceover example, and I say this to a lot of the people that I work with. Maybe they spend so much time editing out every single breath and every click and pop and try to make it totally perfect. If you have a client that is requesting that you go and do that, or they don't like it because they're criticizing the way that you do something naturally, that your voice that comes out naturally, maybe they're just not a good fit. It sounds like they're a pain in the ass. It sounds like they are forcing you to reduce your value, because what's happening is they're making you take longer to do what you do, to produce your content, your voiceover, whatever it is. Or it could also be in your head, right? I'm going to not, and I've done this before, I'm guilty of this too. I'm not going to post this video because I don't like the way that I sound or the way that I look or whatever. You got to just be you, and everybody has that, right? That little voice inside their head that's saying, you could do better or whatever. So it's a personal thing, and you have to weigh it. So I just want to address breaths, clicks, and pops with not only how to address them with processing techniques to avoid them, but also just putting it in perspective. Sometimes we put a lot of weight on ourselves, on our brains to be perfect, but that's my perspective. That's the way I address it. And if you are going through my content and you hear a particular word that I say over and over again, or the way that I say a word or the tone of my voice is bugging you, that's totally okay. I'm good with that. There's plenty of other videos you could watch. But I'm going to keep doing what I do because I'm good at this. It comes naturally, and this is me, and I'm not ashamed of it. So, boy, this is really, it's like a therapy session today. Anyway, I hope this has helped you. Let's listen again. Now that I've explained my approach with breaths, clicks, and pops, I want to play for you again what I feel is fine. This is what, in my estimation, this is my interpretation of what a good processed sound is for this client. Now, it's going to be personal when he hears this back. If he's interested in purchasing my custom processing preset, he can. I think it sounds incredible, and none of those breaths and clicks and pops are bugging me after what I've done. But I'm not using the mouth to click. I'm just using that gate, and to me, it passes my threshold of what is acceptable. The breaths, clicks, and pops post-processing that I've done don't take away they don't take away my attention from the story. I'm getting sucked in by the story because of how he's presenting his story, how he's telling the story. The characters are great in what he's doing. So I'll play a little bit more of this audio before and after the processing.
Carson studied the scene through binoculars as Forrest jammed on his brakes and stopped the truck. Roadblock. Cars blocking the road. Armed men. How many? Forrest asked. Maybe 8 or 10. Looks like bikers. Leather vests, bandanas, attitude. They've got shotguns, handguns, and... He paused, adjusting the focus. Is that guy seriously carrying a MAC-10? Alex spoke with dark amusement. A MAC-10? What is this, 1985? Spray and pray, Carson observed. More dangerous to his friends than his enemies.
I think it sounds great. I love his voice. I love his presentation and the pictures that he's describing in this particular style of story, whatever it is. I want to invite you to send me your audio. If you have a question about where your voice fits, how you can improve the sound, whether it's with things like breaths and clicks and pops, or you just want to hear what your voice sounds like with my custom processing. That's one of the services that I offer. I can send you an example. It's a free demo of what your voice will sound like with my custom processing chain. It's EQ and compression and de-essing and that expander gate. And if necessary, or if you request it, I can use restoration plugins. But I'll send you my interpretation of what sounds good, and then we could work from there. But that's one of the things that I help people as an audio engineer specializing in voiceover. I want to help you make that connection with your audience stronger. Here's what you do. It's absolutely free. You don't have to buy anything. You go to my website, lennyb.com, and you click the red button at the top of the page. Follow the instructions. Send me your audio. I will examine it. I'll diagnose it. I'll let you know if there are things that are preventing the processing from sounding better, and I will send you an example of what the custom processing can sound like, and you can compare the raw audio, just like we did here in this video. I've got training courses, video training courses, if you want to learn EQ and workflow and mastering and recording levels and things like that. It's all at lennyb.com. Thanks for watching.